Welcome, welcome, welcome. If you're new here, my name is Shay. If you're returning back, welcome back. And I just want to, commend you for clicking on this video because you're dedicated to your improvement and to build muscle and to become better, to become more attractive, to become more confident, all the above. You know what I mean? Better your health as well, live longer, be an example to other people. Okay. And again, my name is Shay, and I help anime enthusiasts and gamers gain the first pound of muscle that they'll ever want and the last pound of muscle that they'll ever need so that they can escape that, stereotype that most of those people have in terms of like being that nerd, you know what I mean? Just be a jacked nerd and just be confident in who you are. So that's what I'm going to help you do. In today's episode, I want to help out with recovery, okay? Recovery, and no, the thumbnail is not clickbait, okay? This is why you won't get jacked and you'll probably stay single, okay? It's because in a recovery sense now, I want you to mind, okay? I'm talking about recovery and muscle growth. And a lot of these things y'all are going to be really good at, and a lot of these things are going to be very, very relatable. And I'm going to give you nuanced answers, okay? In terms of if you watch a lot of anime, play a lot of video games, what does that mean for your recovery? Um, Things that the people in the fitness industry and stuff like that don't talk about, right? So, again, addressing the thumbnail, you know what I mean, is number one thing, and I'm going to get to the number one thing that affects recovery so that everything ties in kind of like the fourth season of AOT, right? Um, is stress management, okay? Sorry about the wind and everything like that as well, guys. I know it's going to be a little bit like crackling and stuff. I'm working on getting a new mic, but anyway, stress management is the biggest thing. Okay, is one of the biggest things, in my opinion, and that's something I know a lot of people who overthink a lot deal with, and a lot of people my age who love um, talking to women and just have their focus on women. Because let's be honest, I was one of those guys. Okay, I had like like more than I would like to admit, I had a lot of my focus on trying to be attractive, trying to just like, you know, date as many people as I wanted to, and sometimes even just being something casual, you know what I mean? And a lot of times, what that does, and I'll tell you how that affects your muscle gain and everything like that, right? It induces a lot of stress. A lot of us are addicted to it because we're just like, yo, it gives me this feeling of a high. You know what I mean? But if you're not like, maybe my views differ from you, but if you're not dating to marry or get to know someone and then marry them, there's like literally 0 point. And I use very data very tentatively because I'm also like Muslim and things of that nature. You know what I mean? And I know this all seems very irrelevant to muscle gain, but this is the first thing I wanted to address because I know it would get your attention, especially a lot of you men, because this is what you do. You know what I mean? You text someone, you think about it all day, and you do nothing productive with your life, and you get stressed because you form this attachment, this infatuation with someone, and you're all stressed now, and you're all worried about losing someone that you never had to begin with. You know what I mean? And that's something a lot of you go through. And you might think that because I go to the gym, I'm healthy, Shay. Because I eat healthy foods, I'm healthy, Shay. And to a great degree, yeah, I want to give you credit where credit's due because that is what matters. You know what I mean? Sleep, food, and I'm gonna get to that. Even if it's the basics, I'm gonna get to it because a lot of you are sighing right now, thinking, "Oh, he's gonna talk about sleep and food like everybody else does," but yet you've never implemented any of those things. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna talk about it and ways to actually get good sleep, ways to actually improve most of those things, right? But again, that's a lot of stress, and that's a lot of the part of your stress-inducing stuff, especially at this age. You know what I mean? You make a huge deal out of it. When you grow up, you probably won't, but um talking to women, or even for women, talking to a lot of men that are just not serious, that are not your people, and you're trying so hard to fit in with them, that social aspect creates a lot of stress and anxiety that is so unnecessary. And no one really told me about this, no one really talked about it, but I see this as a form of psychological distress that affects your ability to get a good work at it. 100%. This is something I went through in college as well, especially first semester. And my grades were tanking because of it, which, by the way, additional psychological distress. That sucks. And I thought the gym was the only thing I had going for me. And from a muscle building perspective, it wasn't. But in terms of a place that felt therapeutic for me, it was. It was the only thing that was going for me. But I have a list right here that I want to address, essentially, of all the things that will help you with recovery. Okay, because this is an in-depth guide to recovery. Um, but yeah, that being the biggest thing, and you'll understand why as I go through all the things here. Like, just keep stress management in mind. And this is coming from someone who is a psychology major and has been in the fitness industry for half a decade, okay, and is still learning and continuing their education in both those things. So kind of like a sports psychology kind of thing. Um, and again, I'm not like a PhD in this stuff, but I've had experience, so I know. Okay, and that's why I can confidently talk about the things that I'm about to talk about and nothing more. So again, number one, stress management. Especially with a lot of the things that you guys do these days, you interact with people, you get yourself into situations, you do things that aren't as relaxing as you claim. Okay, there's a difference between what you claim to be relaxing and what is actually relaxing to you. Okay, and that matters a lot. That matters a lot. A lot of you think recovery is just the physical aspect, and I understand that because from everybody who's talked about it so far, you might think that, oh, recovery is just like, oh, let me get like all my calories in, like I've talked about before, right? If you want to learn how to bulk and do all that stuff, you can look at my other videos, because I've been able to go from 120 to 190 pounds, right? So I want to be able to teach you all that stuff. But that's all you hear. You hear get your protein intake in, get your calories in. You know what I mean? And then some people talk about getting your healthy fats in for your hormone levels, and like that carbs are not the enemy. You know what I mean? Like, you know, but eating complete and utter trash junk food is. But you don't want to make that a whole like, oh, I can never have junk food in my life ever again. Um, but yeah, people only talk about those aspects of recovery, but it is a physical thing as well. Don't get me wrong. But that's not where a lot of you struggle. It's the psychological, what happens in here that makes it very difficult for a lot of us to be able to relax because you're always thinking. You're always either anxious, you're always worried, or you're always thinking about something that happened in the past, which goes back to what I was talking about with the whole like, oh, you getting stuck interacting with someone that you think is your someone, or a friend group that you don't really fit in, and all you're thinking about is the stress and all the problems that that causes, and it's just not conducive to your overall health to begin with, let alone like building muscle. You know what I mean? So the big emphasis that I'm going to have within in this video is that this matters a lot more than you think. Okay, the physical matters too. The physical, just because this matters does not mean the physical matters any less, but this matters a lot. Okay, and I've recently talked to a lot of people, um, a lot of the trainers that I work with at the gym that I'm working at. I'm working as like more of like a sales representative, and I'm working around trainers just to see like what what it's like to work as like an in-person trainer. But they'll talk about this as well. Like, some of them struggle with like the psychological distresses of life, and that affects their training. It's like a really real thing. Okay, and again, no one really talks about this. So first off, let's get the basics out of the way. So I've gotten stress management. Okay, now everything I'm about to mention is going to tie in with stress management. Okay, sleep, sleep. A lot of you again are going to sigh and be like, oh my god, sleep, he's talking about like the most basic things. Don't worry, I'm going to talk about more nuanced things, but this matters so much. Like, people will repeat this over and over again, and you already know this. This is like, I'm not teaching you anything new. If I am, okay, by all means, cool. But this is a reminder for most of you. Okay, this is a reminder for most of you. Get your sleep in. And it doesn't necessarily need to be um 8 hours. It can range anywhere from like 7 hours, 7 hours and 30 minutes, all the way to like 9 hours for some of you. So don't just get like this one number in mind, because then you're going to create a superstition around it, and you're going to be like, if I don't get my full sleep, it's over for me. And that psychological distress of also not getting that full sleep is going to affect you. So there's a psychological distress of not getting your full sleep, okay? Which is like, oh, you only get 4 or 5 hours, like you're literally functioning off like the basic amount of sleep. But then there's also the effects that you get when you're so focused on your sleep intake and you're not getting it. Like, you get 7 hours and 59 minutes, and you're like, oh my god, I missed 1 minute. It's going to be a terrible day. That kind of thing. Okay, so you worrying about your sleep in and of itself can affect it too, because that's something that I've gotten into. A lot of you will notice, being in the self improvement space, stuff like that, is you're told to get your amount of hours of sleep. It's like, cool, okay. After that, you shouldn't need to worry about like your sleep that much. Okay? You shouldn't have to like worry and constantly like think about it like, "Oh my god, did I get it? Did I not?" Because then you're going to go through this self-fulfilling prophecy where if you don't get your full sleep, um if you don't think that you get your full sleep, then you're going to be like, "Oh my god, I'm just not going to function today. I'm just not going to operate today." And then that's going to end up becoming true. That's something that I really struggled with, okay? And I'm starting to kind of get around that. That's why I know some people talk about the aura rings or the sleep rings can affect their mental health because if they don't see themselves getting the full stats for their sleep or going deep into REM sleep, you know what I mean? Rapid eye movement sleep, then they'll just be like, "Oh, it wasn't a good sleep, therefore it's not going to be a good day." They just equate it to that. So, like, over worrying about sleep intake is not a good thing, but then under worrying about it to where you're not getting any at all or you're not like timing yourself and getting like, the optimal amount of sleep is also bad. And you need to find that middle ground. And again, easier said than done, but here's the things that I use that help me, okay? A lot of you will probably have sleep timing apps within the iPhone, and if you don't have an iPhone, that's not a big deal. Okay, you can just set more of like an alarm. But what I want you to do is instead of setting an alarm for when you want to wake up, set an alarm for when you want to go to sleep. Okay, and this is going to help tremendously. Okay, and I'm going to address you gamers and anime fans as well because it's catered to y'all, right? The video that I'm making. Um, Also, real quick, shout out to my school community for talking about this, because they're the ones that recommended I talk about this. So if you want to be part of the discussions within the school community that I have, that is inclusive of like the gamers and anime fans and stuff like that, where it's completely free, and I talk about essentially I have weekly calls on there, and we talk about what videos I should make on what stuff. Join it completely free. Link in the description. I'd be more than happy to just create a community there, just so like no one feels alone on their fitness journey. So join it completely free. Again, but I want to shout them out for this video. But yeah, I'm going to get into how um, video games and anime kind of complicate this process of sleep. Okay, so for a lot of you, what you probably do is play a shit ton of video games or watch like binge watch animes late at night, right? Which is half and half in terms of recovery, and I'll get into the specifics of that. Okay, but when it comes to sleep, you'll probably be like when it comes to video games, you'll probably be in a ranked game. Okay, and you're going to miss that alarm that I'm talking about to go to sleep. So you want to set multiple alarms, okay? Because I know y'all are just going to turn it off because you're in like a very focused ranked game in Rainbow Six, which by the way, let's be honest, a lot of the competitive ranked games are not relaxed time, okay? That's the next segue I wanted to go into. Why? Because first of all, you're messing up your sleep because you're doing this late at night, okay? And for a lot of you that don't know, there's not only the optimal amount of time that a person can sleep, which was what I was talking about, right? 7 to 9 hours or something like that. Especially for like younger males or younger adults as well. Like um, this goes for women and men. Um, but it's also the time at which you sleep, okay? And this matters because in neuroscience, you have something known as your circadian rhythms, which is essentially like these are rhythms like circadian specifically are 24 hours, you know, and then you have infraradian and ultraradian rhythms, which are like less than 24 hours regulating your body, and then more than 24 hours regulating your body, like past that, right? But circadian rhythms are specifically like 24 hours, and that pretty much just dictates your sleep. Okay. And how your body knows is like I want you to think about it kind of like the old ages, like back in like I don't know Neanderthal times. Um, how they would know, or your body would know to go to sleep, is like through a lot of the sunlight exposure. Okay, because what it does is it takes that light energy, converts it into like neural signaling that goes into like something called your suprachiasmatic nucleus. And you'll learn this in neuroscience as well. This is something I learned, and it essentially tells your circadian rhythms um, to be like on top of their stuff. And so that's how you know, that's how your body knows to be able to release its natural melatonin, which is essentially a neurotransmitter that helps you go to sleep. And so that's why it matters when you get your 8 hours. The 8 hours that you get from 2 a.m. all the way to 10 p or 10 a.m. is not the same as the sleep that you'd get from, let's say, 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That sleep is probably for the majority of you going to be way better, okay? And that goes into the video game and anime binging thing. You're probably going to, what is it called? Play way past that, miss your alarms. So set alarms, multiple of them, okay? Um, as a way to be able to go to sleep, okay? And your last alarm should be like the one that is like 30 minutes before you sleep, okay? So let's say you're in a ranked game. Let's say you're trying to fall asleep at like 9 p.m., 10 p.m., right? You should have alarms that go all the way from like, I don't know, 7, 7:30, 8, 8:30, and that should be your last alarm, assuming you sleep at 9, so that you can prepare to go to sleep, okay? Because you need some time off of the blue light off the screen. And let's be honest, ranked games, bro, they're stressful. Okay, a lot of you are coping when you're saying you're relaxed on video games, okay? There's only certain times where you can be relaxed on video games. That depends on um what kind of game you're playing. So Minecraft, you're probably going to be a lot more relaxed, um, especially if you're like playing it in a very brain dead way. If you play it a lot as well, because that means you're habituated to most of the actions in the game, so you know how to play it. It's not taking a lot of neural load, a lot of cognitive load because you're learning the game. If you already know how to play it and it's a relaxing game, okay, there might be an argument for that. Okay, I'm not going to give you like absolutes because there's a lot of factors that go into recovery, but if you're playing a ranked game and you're constantly yelling at your teammates because they're 0-9, okay, that's not gonna work. You're probably really, really stressed. So playing things like FIFA, Ultimate Team in most games, Madden, I don't care what you're doing, UFC, probably very stressful, okay? I'm just gonna keep it a buck, okay? I'm not saying don't play them at all. Just don't play them thinking that you're relaxing, because that is not relaxation time. That is not helping you recover. Your brain is active in that, and you're in psychological distress. Again, the first thing I talked about, psychological distress, that is going to affect your recovery. Okay. And I'm catering that to video games right now. Now, anime, I think anime is a little bit less, little bit more lenient. Okay. But I'm also going to talk about ways in which, um, ways in which you can kind of mitigate the stress that you get from anime and video games, okay? But this is not going to be like a be all end all solution, okay? And this is going to help a lot of you bulk as well. So listen very carefully, okay? There's a lot of things that tie into this. Take notes if you need to. Something that really helps with recovery, I mentioned, was food, okay? But more specifically, when you're on a bulk, you need more calories, correct? Okay, take advantage of that fact. Load up on your carbs during the night, okay? During the night. And the reason I say this is carbs, especially if you're super sensitive to them and you haven't had them all day, they will um they will spike your what is it? Blood sugar levels and your insulin. You know what I mean? Especially if you have them in high volume and a lot of them, you know what I mean? And you have carbohydrates, you will go through something called the itis, okay? What a lot of people call the itis or a food coma or whatever, okay? And that kind of makes you more stupid. And a lot of you might view that as a bad thing, but that's actually a great thing for recovery, because a lot of you who go through that psychological distress because you're talking to the girl that's not going to text you back, or you're yelling in a ranked game, um, you know what I mean? That isn't conducive to your health, and you know your team's losing, you're doing dog shit. It's just not great overall. It's gonna blunt the effect of all of that psychological distress, because you're now in what you call, in a neuroscientific way, your parasympathetic nervous system is activated, which is a fancy way of saying your body is in rest and digest mode. Okay, because you've had that huge influx of carbs. Think about like the olden days. You know what I mean? They'd hunt all day and then they'd have a huge meal with the rest of the gang. And once you had that huge meal, you probably don't have the energy to do anything else. So what I want you to do in a psychological sense is tell yourself, "Hey, to bulk, I can do this at night, and right before I game, I can have this, okay? And it'll basically make me more stupid, but it's fine because I'm benefiting from the recovery aspects." And I know a lot of you like being like hella productive and like listening to like very educated people and their podcasts, like Andrew Huberman, Chris Williamson, stuff like that. Ideally, don't do that at night. I'm very guilty of this too, but don't do that at the night because you're gonna stimulate your brain into thinking a lot. Do that when you're like on a drive, kind of like listening to this. You know what I mean? Buckle in, listening to this while you're eating something or while you're on a drive, because a lot of that is going to stimulate you. You know, you might think that's a good thing because it's like, oh my god, like I'm being challenged on my beliefs, and yes, it is. Don't get it twisted. It's way better than, like, let's be honest, like the gain that you'd get from playing like video games or watching anime. But doing it at night where you can like stimulate your brain to think and be very, very awake is not ideal. Um, you want to do stuff that helps you kind of go, ah, that kind of stuff. Okay, that's the best way to put it. That's the kind of stuff you want to do. Oh God, be okay. That's the kind of stuff you want to do, because then you're just going to be fully relaxed. So take advantage of that carb crash that you get, okay, by eating a lot of that food. Helps you with the bulking and will help you with the recovery. And I want you to lean into the stupidness, okay? Lean into being stupid when you've had all that food, okay? You don't have to be serious. You don't have to be like, if I was making this video on a carb crash, I'd be a completely different person. Completely different, okay? Right now I'm sharp. I've had my tea. I haven't had breakfast yet. I'm going to. And it's going to be a clean breakfast that is mostly made out of protein and fats, because that's what helps me think, especially as a student, especially as someone who works. That's what helps me think. And then I can have that huge influx of calories at night because I'm not cooking 6 meals a day like these influencers are, alongside the fact that I can be stupid so that I can like recover for the sake of recovery, and I can just chill with friends, have a light talk, maybe have a light walk after what I've eaten so that I can sleep better and digest the food, you know what I mean? That kind of thing. Or if you're really into the gaming thing, make your food before. Go to the gym, make your food, all the food that you'll need so that you won't snack and do all these things, okay? And then you can use that food as a way to, again, go into a food coma and then enjoy the gaming process more. Now, I'll say still, if you want to mitigate that stress, I highly recommend not playing like ranked games and stuff like that, but I know you guys will. So to mitigate that, have a huge influx of like volume of food along with along with the carbs. Okay, specifically stuff like, so. Let me give you examples. Rice helps. Uh, Pasta helps. Like this basic stuff helps a lot. Add curries to it. Add olive oils. Add seasoning to it. Just spice it up a little bit. Make some egg fried rice. Do something fun with it. Alongside that, something that I recommend is having your liquid calories at night as well, right after. You know what I mean? I like thinking about it like this. Imagine your stomach as like this glass jar. You know what I mean? And if you want to fit you have two things you need to fit inside of that glass jar: big rocks and small sediments, okay? But if you put the small sediments first and then the big rocks, not all the big rocks are going to fit. But if you put all the big rocks in and then you put the sediments are kind of move around along the big rocks, and so everything will be able to fit. So you eat your big meal, which are like the big rocks, okay, and then you add in the sediments, which is kind of like the protein shake. You know what I mean? Add some olive oil to that so you don't taste anything, along with protein powder, peanut butter, oats to thicken the shake a little bit, stuff like that. Find a good consistency for your own shake, and you're going to experience huge carb crashes off of that. And that's going to be great for your recovery process. Okay. So that's something I highly recommend. I know a lot of things went into that. Okay. So let me repeat what I just said. Set an alarm for a time to go to sleep rather than wake up, and make it so that you get enough time to be able to wake up without an alarm. So if you sleep for 8 hours, set an alarm that is like 9 hours. So you make sure you still wake up for work on time, but you still get your full sleep. And over time, all that's going to happen is you're going to sleep at a specific time, which is now regulated with your circadian rhythms and your melatonin release. So it's going to be even easier to fall asleep. You're going to wake up at a good time. You know what I mean? Um, Before that alarm even goes off. So it's going to be a nice unstressful way to get up, which also goes into the psychological stress management thing. And it's just going to be great. You know what I mean? And if you really need a game, then just do all that. Just move your gaming hours a little bit more back along with your melatonin release. So if you usually game 4 hours up until like, I don't know, from 10 p.m. to 2 p.m., then move that down a little bit. And I know a lot of you are going to have limiting beliefs like, oh, my friends don't get on at that time, stuff like that. It's like communicate, try to like talk them through it, because maybe they have the same things. Maybe they don't want to play this late at night either. Because there was a time where I brought it up, and my homies were like, "Bro, we're trying to go to sleep early too. We got work, we got all this shit. Like, we're only up because you're up playing ranked this late, and we're like going through it together. Do not do that. Don't go through it together because you're gonna play, 4 or 5 hours of rank just to lose more than where you were at before, and not have any rank gain at all. You're actually gonna lose rank, because you're up that late and you're going through psychological distress and you're tired. So yeah, do it a lot earlier. So again, so many of these things go into each other. I don't think I addressed the anime thing as much. So I think anime is a bit more leisure than video games, because in video games you're the active decision taker. You know what I mean? So you're actively engaging in something. While anime, it can be a lot more passive because you're just watching something. You're just relaxing. You know what I mean? That's what a lot of these athletes do in order to relax. You know what I mean? They do literally nothing with their day, okay, besides just playing the sport or doing the thing. And granted, they're getting paid a lot of money to do it, but they're also kind of required to recover, okay? They do 2 workouts a day and stuff like that because it's their job, but it's a part of their job to recover, you know what I mean? But you just think it's not a job because you've been recovering for the last, like, however long you've been alive for, you know what I mean? So, so yeah, those are some recovery things. I'm gonna go along with more. Let me read off my list. What have I gotten? Okay. Oh, one other thing I wanted to address about sleeping, okay? This is not medical advice. So, and I'd be very, very careful to do this, especially if you have insomnia, sleep apnea, or any sleep disorders, okay? So be very, very cognizant of this. But something that significantly improved my sleep for me was mouth tape, okay? I don't know if it's placebo. I don't know if this is real, but I heard Andrew Huberman talking about it. And I know there's a lot of people that disagree with it, for whatever reason, or disagree because they don't think it helps. But in my opinion, from my experience, it has helped me. Okay, medical mouth tape, and no, you're not going to suffocate mid-sleep. But for the individuals who might have sleeping disorders, especially sleep apnea, is going to be a common one when you're bulking. You know what I mean? Because of the way a lot of people's anatomy works. I would be careful and address a healthcare provider in terms of that. But you know, I don't know how much evidence there is on mouth tape. I've heard there have been some studies done, but I'm not going to talk about literature that I don't know much on. But I am going to talk about my experience because that's what helped me, and it's helped. It's also helped someone who I consider my close brother. I was like, "Yo, try it out, see if it works," and he's into dentistry. You know what I mean? So he talked about how it prevents a lot of bacteria coming into the mouth. Don't know if that's true or not. Don't know whatever, but I did it because I think it helped me naturally just breathe through my nose, and all that mewing craze and stuff like that. I was like, oh, mewing in my sleep, knock two birds with one stone. You know what I mean? But besides that, I did it more for the fact that I felt as though mouth tape helped me get a lot more quality sleep for less time. So I'd be waking up 6, 7 hours and getting really quality sleep and be awake. And it it was way better compared to my normal sleep where I'd get like 8, 9 hours and I still didn't feel rested. Okay. But there's a caveat to this, and that's that there's two caveats actually. One is that when you put on mouth tape, expect to wake up earlier than you normally would. And again, that's going to affect a lot of y'all in a psychological distress manner, because you're going to be like, oh my God, I woke up earlier than I need to. Did I get my full sleep? Did I not? Like, I don't know. I don't know, but expect it. Now that you have that expectation in mind, you know that you might wake up earlier and you might actually be full on your sleep and you might feel pretty good. So don't let that factor like bring you down or bog you down like I didn't get my full sleep. No, maybe the quality of the sleep that you got was really good, because that matters too. You know what I mean? So it's quality of sleep when you sleep and how much you sleep. Most people just talk about how much you sleep, 7 to 9 hours or whatever it is, right? On average, because it's different for everybody. Especially as you age, you need less sleep. Um, Something you also learn in neuroscience. But then they don't talk about when you should sleep, you know, and the quality of sleep. And some of these two are sort of intertwined. You know what I mean? Because again, 2 a.m. to 10 a.m. is not the same sleep. It's probably going to be lesser sleep quality than 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That kind of thing. Uh, and once you get used to that sleep schedule, it actually feels really, really good. So yeah, absolutely. Um, Again, mouth tape really, really helped me out. So try it out. You're not gonna suffocate. Use medical mouth tape. Anything you could buy at the stores. You know what I mean? And just boop, close your mouth. Practice breathing through your nose. It might be a little bit difficult first few nights, but try it out. Have a nap, perhaps. In the afternoon when a lot of you are getting that crash. Um, Try that out. See how that helps you. Okay. Um, But again, address your healthcare provider if you do have a lot of like sleep problems and sleep issues. Okay, cool. Now, okay, Shay. So you've addressed psychological distress, how it plays into anime and gaming stuff that we really like doing. You know what I mean? I've also addressed talking to a lot of people, being in social settings, and interacting with women because most of my audience is male. But for you, like two women that are watching out there, most of you interacting with men that are also giving you psychological distress because they're not committing to anything, not marriage or anything like that. Um, I've talked about that. So those factors are going to affect you heavily. So that's kind of like anti recovery stuff that you don't want to get into. You know what I mean? Or do in moderation. What is stuff that you'd actually do to be able to recover? So I have a few stuff in here that I think would help. A few things in here that I think would help. Okay. Um, let's see. So one thing I addressed was the carb crash. Very, very helpful in terms of bulking, in terms of getting the food you need to eat, because then you're not going to be snacking on stuff because you have already made all the food you need for the night. So you can like game and watch anime if you really want to. Okay. I wouldn't recommend always doing it. Um, And then something else that really, really helps. So I already addressed sleep. I already addressed carb crash. I already addressed food with the carb crash kind of. So of course, the healthier you eat, the more whole foods you eat, the better your recovery process is probably going to be as compared to eating junk. Now, can you eat junk in moderation? 100%. Um, I like keeping the rule of like 10% of what I eat in a day can be junk. But because of the way that I eat is mostly clean most of the time, I'll like I'll do like a cheat day from time to time, but mostly I do cheat meals to be honest. You know what I mean? Because when you don't keep yourself away, when you tell yourself you're not restricting all these bad foods, it actually becomes easier to not eat them because then, like, in our minds, we're not really restricting ourselves. We're just being like, yo, I'm just going to eat this. I'm just going to choose to eat something better. And because of that, you're just like, yo, I don't need to have these chips, or I don't need to have this, or I don't need to have that, but I'm not like outright restricting myself, because when you restrict yourself, again, you're going to go through a lot of psychological distress and you're going to be like, yo, oh my God, this looks so tempting because you've told yourself you can never ever have it again, which is unrealistic as hell. Okay. So, just a little tidbit on how to kind of self set healthy relationship with food. Um, what else? Okay. Something I know I was going to talk about things to recover better, but I have to address this for a lot of you gym bros already. Okay. Um, and for a lot of people that are getting into the gym that hear about this as well. Cold plunges, cold showers. It's cool and all if you do after a cardio session. It's cool and all if you do it in the morning to wake up, but do not do it right after your workout, okay? Because in terms of the workout, you might think you're doing like a what you might call it, a recovery process by taking a cold shower, but that's not actually the case. What you're doing is you're sort of reducing the effect of the inflammatory process of muscle building. Okay. So I know that was a bunch of fancy words. So let me break it down for you. When you're working out, what you're doing is creating an inflammatory response in your body. Okay. Especially to the muscles that you worked out for that particular workout. Okay. So let's say you worked out chest. If you go and take a cold shower right after that, you're blunting the inflammatory process that is necessary to build muscle. Okay. because that's what we do when we have anything that's like inflamed, right? When we get a mosquito bite, when we're sore, you know what I mean? So we're like, okay, let's put an ice pack on it, or let's put it in some cold water, or hope the soreness goes away. And that works for cardio. And in the morning, when you just want to wake up and like reset dopamine receptors or whatever and make your skin healthier, cool. But not for after working out, because again, it blunts the response. So that is literally the one thing that is anti-recovery. Like that is, you're going into the negatives. Okay, so don't do that. That's the one thing that like I would recommend not doing. Okay, but besides that, in terms of doing what you want to recover, it's all gonna come down. A lot of it's gonna come down to psychological stuff. Okay, which is, what do you actually find relaxing? And again, there's so many factors that go into this. And that statement in and of itself is so difficult to say, because some things like a cold plunge, you might think is relaxing for a lot of you, but in a physiological sense, it is not relaxing for your body, okay? Um, Not really, at least. Not in terms of the inflammatory muscle that helps you build muscle. So that isn't like a mindset thing. That is just like a physiological response. So that's like a don't do it at all. But in terms of like a massage, if you think a massage is relaxing, it's not like anti-muscle. It's not gonna make it to where like you're not building muscle. A massage is just neutral, okay? So if you think a massage is a good thing, it's gonna actually help you out a lot because you think it's relaxing. If you don't like massages, chances are you're gonna feel uncomfortable. You're like, ooh, who's this putting hands on me? Or ooh, like I don't like the way this like, a lot of gyms offer a hydro massage, which is like a water pressure massage. You might not like the way that feels. I personally like it. I get pretty relaxed on it. But if you're on your phone on reels, like I also am sometimes, you're not getting recovered. Okay. So put your phone down, relax. It should give you that feeling. Something I really like doing with a lot of my friends. Okay, is we go to this hot tub, okay? That's what really helps me relax. I go, my body just relaxes, okay? Um, and that's nice. That really helps with the recovery process. Um, because I find it psychologically like easing. It eases me out. Something else that can really, really help, two things that I don't mention very, very often, but this helps in general, holistically, with your life, with social media addiction, with um, having a better connection to God. You can already see where this is going. I know a lot of you are going to sigh, but listen to me really, really quickly, especially if you aren't as religious. Meditating and prayer are really, really, really powerful. Okay. And I'm going to address this for folks who are into God and folks who are not. Okay. Because I've known both perspectives. So, in terms of meditating you could do for religious reasons. I don't partake in any religious reasons for meditating, but I do it because I know there's medical benefits. Okay, specifically, one is my attention span. Okay, helps with the attention span. Two, helps with a lot of like thoughts. And no, not those kinds of thoughts, not the thick kind of thoughts. I'm talking about psychological, like mental thoughts. You know what I mean? Helps with those kinds of thoughts. um and maybe eventually might help with thoughts because you're healthier mentally, but you're probably not going to be attracting thoughts if you're healthy mentally, right? But but um yeah, it will help you with your thoughts a lot. So what's going to happen, like I meditated before this, which is why I'm able to make like almost like a 40-minute long video. It's probably going to be a little bit longer because it's a comprehensive recovery guide, but that's why I'm able to talk as fast as I am. And alongside, like with the caffeine that I've had and things of that nature, you know what I mean? It helps clear up my mind a lot. And why is that important? Remember what I said at the beginning of the video: psychological distress, huge impact on recovery. Okay. So meditating can help reduce that because you're not going to have as many of those bad thoughts. You're not going to have as many of those impulsive thoughts. Sleep is also going to help with that because let's be honest, like I addressed, like this is something I didn't talk about in terms of sleep, but when you get less sleep, you're going to be more likely to give in to your intrusive thoughts. Okay. You're going to be like, oh, let me grab for that snack that I probably shouldn't be grabbing for. Let me grab for, let me not work out because I'm tired. You know what I mean? And that actually sucks because you actually are tired and it's probably actually not going to help you. So you need to get your sleep, you know? Um, Meditating also really, really helps with that in a psychological sense. If you're not godly, this will really, really help you. This also helps me. Okay, and I am um, more on the side of God. Okay, now how is prayer going to help? Now, as a Muslim, I have 5 mandatory prayers daily. So I'm working on getting really, really good at those, and I have gotten much better at those. But that helps because we do something called wudu, which is like you wash yourself with water, um, and it's essentially there to kind of cleanse your spirit and your physical self, right? Um, and that's how I think of it. It's like a it makes you feel spiritually clean. Okay, um, before you are about to go into prayer, and that helps relax me, gets me out of like a tired state as well. It just helps calm me down. And then what I like, the cue that I like using to go into prayer, instead of thinking this is a mandatory thing that I got to do, even though it is a mandatory thing that I got to do. I like thinking, let me surrender in prayer and breathe, kind of like I do in meditation. Breathe and take things slow. And when I do that, in my mind, I'm surrendering to the Lord of the universe, and it makes me humble. It makes me humble, so it takes a lot of psychological distress away from like the worries that I might have, or all these things that I have in my past that I think define me. And then, especially as a guy, in the modern age, a lot of us guys feel like we don't have a lot of people to talk to. So prayer is something that helps with that. And if you want a psychological way to think about it, um, Freud and Vygotsky had something known as Vygotsky had, I think, private speech, and Freud had something known as free association, which for Freud was a form of therapy that he would use, where the clientele would just talk about literally anything they ever wanted. So I think about prayer in that manner a lot. I also think about private speech a lot. Sorry about the cackling in the mic, by the way. I don't know if it's cracking or not, but sorry, it's a little windy. I also like thinking about Vygotsky's private speech, which is essentially like where you talk to yourself. Um, because that's essentially what a lot of you might be thinking when you're thinking about praying to God. You're like, I'm not praying to God, I'm just talking to myself. Okay, cool. If you think about it that way, then it's like you're still able to articulate a lot of the things that you're going through, which gives you a great release psychologically. And the great thing about that is you don't feel like you need anyone for it. Not saying that like you shouldn't. If you have homies, if you have friends to talk about it with, 100% do that. I'm not saying to be this like cringe lone wolf sigma male bullshit. Uh, um, you know, just say it out loud because it helps you articulate some of the problems you're going through, some of the things that you haven't given yourself time to process. And what does it go back to? Psychological distress again. So it helps you alleviate a lot of that in prayer, in meditation. It helps you do that. In meditation, it helps you from preventing you from getting those thoughts, those intrusive thoughts. And in prayer, it helps you kind of release them. It helps you get rid of a lot of them. It helps you cry to someone. You know what I mean? Because that seems like a huge taboo thing for a lot of men to do, but in Islam, it's like a beautiful thing. You cry to your Lord. You know what I mean? And I'm sure it's similar in other religions as well. So yeah, that's why I like it so much because rather than thinking about it as something I have to do, I think about it as getting a break from reality. If you could pause time, that's the closest thing you'd get to it, meditation and prayer. So that's why I think those are underutilized recovery methods, but you don't want to think about them as recovery methods. That's the huge thing about recovery as well. When you think about something as like recovery, oh, I got to get my recovery in, what you're still doing is stressing about the fact that you got to recover. So that's why you have to have the like the feeling when it comes to recovery. Like it's not like it is something that is planned because it's in your schedule, but it's not something that you feel like you're rushed to do. Kind of like you're rushed to getting ready for work in the morning because you waited for that one girl to text you at night, or you played way too long video games, or you binged anime too long at night. You're not worried about it like that. And that's what's so nice. That's why it has to be like actual intentional recovery. Now, you can have times where it's like, okay, 5 mandatory prayers. Sometimes you do just got to get through it. You know what I mean? And as unfortunate as that is to say, um, I think practicing and leaning into doing it slower, because you'll only learn the way that you practice. So if you practice doing it slower, you practice going through it like properly, then you'll do it that way. But sometimes, yeah, you just got to get things done. So, but just you know, implement and plan some things that are recovery by nature, but don't like stress at them like, oh my god, I didn't get my recovery in, man. Like, what is this? Because you always have sleep to fall back on as well. Okay. Um, what else? Let me talk about a few other things. Like again, something I mentioned was me and my friends, we like going to the hot tub, man, and that's like an ultimate recovery activity for me because I'm like, it's just nice. I can turn my brain off. But again, that carb crash thing really helps for when I feel like I can't turn my brain off because I'm thinking about things, not necessarily thinking about who I'm gonna text, who like stupid stuff, but like thinking about how I can improve myself and getting caught in that rabbit hole too. Because then you think you got to do something productive every minute of your life, and that gives you a lot of psychological distress when you don't do it as well. So, on both fronts. Um, address sleep. I address prayer. Something that really helps me, okay, underrated, but I'll talk about some of the recovery stuff that helps me. So again, I said the hot tub. Um, something that also helps me relax is certain kinds of TV shows or animes that I know I'm not like dedicated into, or like that like serious about, or the way I would put it is because I'm a psych major and because I like looking into the characters of most of the anime characters, if there's a show where I'm not necessarily doing that, then I know I'm relaxing. But when there's a show where I'm picking every character apart, kind of like Blue Lock, then it's kind of hard for me because I use Blue Lock as a sense of like motivation and a sense of like adapting the players' mindsets because I think they're very, very usable in modern day fashion, in like a really realistic fashion. So I'm very guilty of that, and that's like one of those nuanced things that if you're kind of like me in, then it might not be like a full recovery thing for you. Same thing with video games. If you're prone to rage, and just be honest with yourself, it's not gonna help you. What else? What else? What else? What else? And again, a lot of things that you find that are really, really relaxing can honestly really, really help you. Like something that is relaxing to one person might not be relaxing to another person. Okay. So kind of like massages. One like I remember one of my coworkers was talking to me. It was like, I don't know why I don't like massages. I'm like, oh, that's really interesting. That's cool. You know what I mean? So for them, it wouldn't be relaxing, but for me, it's like, oh, cool, nice. I'm getting a nice massage. That's really relaxing. Um, for those of you who do have spouses, um, I'm not encouraging degeneracy by any means, like getting with random people and doing stuff like this. But I know sexual stuff, cuddling, stuff like that also helps. So if you have a spouse, that's going to help you out. You know what I mean? Because the alternative of that is when you have a bad relationship with someone like romantic. Doesn't matter if it's actually romantic. It could be a friend. It could be anybody. Goes back to what psychological distress. If you have a pet, cuddling them, stuff like that. If you find that like you know releasing of stress, going on a walk. Something I like doing is having tea and just sitting out here, like literally where I'm sitting and just closing my eyes, feeling the wind. That is so relaxing to me. Something so small but so relaxing. For a lot of you, that might just be like, that's kind of boring, whatever. But yeah, I enjoy nature. I enjoy like weather like this, and so that would be really relaxing. I'm probably actually just going to have breakfast and drink some orange juice with some creatine right out here, just chill. You know what I mean? What else? Okay, this is something I haven't addressed. Very, very important. Okay, very, very important. So, how can you how can you do this in a physical sense? So, I've talked about psychological distress, right? How can you do this in a way where where we're talking about your training essentially, right? How do you how do you maximize recovery in terms of like the training that you're doing, like the workouts? That is important. Okay, the single biggest indicator for when you have fully recovered is going to be your performance. okay, your performance. So, are you able to take your sets to failure better than you were before? Do you feel stronger? Now, there's a caveat to this. A lot of you newer lifters are going to feel stronger very much quicker because you just introduced something new to your system, new stimuli, right? If you want to think about it scientifically. So you're going to get stronger at a very faster rate. But what's going to happen is it's on a graph. You get stronger, and as years go by, as you get as experienced as I do, your progress is going to sort of like flatten out, okay? And you're going to start hitting your natural peak. And by no means does that mean that I'm even close to my natural peak because I'm only half a decade in. Like natural peak, getting to your natural peak can take anywhere from like 10, 15, 20 years, bro. Like it takes a while, you know what I mean? And so because at that point then like you might be in your 40s and 50s where your testosterone is declining, things of that nature, and you're actually like, but chances are if you've worked out for that long, you're not going to experience that dramatic of a decline, especially because you've been that physically active and things of that nature. So again, how do you measure recovery? It's by your performance in the gym, okay? And there's a few things that go into this, okay? There's again a lot of factors, so I can't give you definitive stuff to what's going to help you, but what I need you to understand that smaller muscle groups such as triceps, biceps, calves, things of that nature, a lot of these smaller muscle groups, they recover a lot faster. So you can implement them into any of your programs like um, every other day. But of course, again, it's going to be different because a lot of you are just starting out, a lot of you are just, you know, uh, on different kinds of diets, different genetics. All these things play a factor. So you have to kind of like learn your body as you go. This is not something you're going to know immediately, which is why you have to start now. This is something you learn after you start and after you keep doing it, which is like you have to gain the experience to know. So like that is that is the only way you figure out how you recover is through experience. There is no like mental gymnastics or um optimizing this, optimizing that before you get into it that helps you realize that it's only experience. Only experience. So once you get into the gym, you know what I mean? And you'll notice for sure. You'll notice like big muscle groups, like leg muscle groups, and areas like the chest, like some of these bigger muscle groups, they recover less faster. You know what I mean? They take longer to recover than like some of your smaller muscle groups. So maybe they need to be implemented um, like if you hit chest on Monday, maybe you hit chest. The closest you hit chest again is like on Thursday. You know what I mean? Give it a 2 day gap or a 3 day gap. You know what I mean? For most optimal recovery in terms of performance. Because like going to failure is cool and everything, but when you're not recovered, you're not going to get any better. You're going to stagnate. You're going to go through much more of a plateau. So what I want you to think is, because I know a lot of gym bros get into this mindset, so I'm going to condition you in a different way is recovery is literally a necessity slash requirement to becoming better. Okay. And well, you might think, well, then why do people like David Goggins and a lot of these people like they train hard every day? They go at it. No, recovery is important, stuff like that. But like they're not. Oh my God, there's like a bee just going around. But yeah, people like David Goggins just training all the time, stuff like that. You have to realize everybody has different reasons for why they train. So his is not to optimize for attractiveness or necessarily strength. He's doing it because of this. Like he wants to be mentally hard. You know what I mean? And that's honestly very commendable. But if you're focusing on muscle growth, then your muscle needs to recover so that it can perform better, because once it performs better, chances are you're going to be able to lift heavier for the amount of set range that you need to be able to build muscle, and you repeat that process and the muscle gets bigger as a result because you're giving it a reason to grow by lifting heavier. You know what I mean? And then supplementation, creatine, those aren't going to be like direct recovery impact supplements. um there's not any great like directly recovery impacting supplements that I would say I know. um but damn, hope that ant didn't bite me or whatever. I hate ants, bro. But protein's going to help because if you're not getting your protein intake in, you're literally not building muscle. Okay, so you need to get your protein intake in. So that can go into one of those anti-recovery things. That's very, very important. Secondly, creatine can help with that as well. Saturate your muscles. Um, Again, completely fine to take. There's nothing wrong with it. Um, but besides that, those are like the biggest bang for your buck supplements. Something I will mention is ashwagandha. I know there was a huge hype on ashwagandha um, a while back. So ashwagandha is interesting, okay, because it's supposed to do, theoretically speaking, is lower your cortisol, which can help indirectly increase your testosterone levels, so to speak. Um, I don't know the research on it, so I'm not going to tell you, but by experience, I will say that I wouldn't use it as a way to help you go to sleep, even though I know a lot of ashwagandha is supplemented with L-theanine, which is typically what clinicians will prescribe to be able to supplement with, like, um, when people have depression or anxiety medication, typically like hydroxyzine. Again, those are something you'd get with like get prescribed at like a clinic. So do not take that medical advice from here. But yes, that is like L-theanine is typically what people would supplement with in terms of sleep, or uh, magnesium glycinate. Uh, what else? Magnesium threonate, uh, apigenin, that can be found in, like, for example, uh, uh, chamomile tea, things of that nature. Chamomile tea, it's all right. It hasn't helped me as much as I thought it would. And again, you have to be careful because these things you can create a superstition around, which I think can be more damaging for your sleep at times, because you always have to think, oh, I gotta drink this tea or I gotta take this pill or else my sleep isn't good, which is again addressed with your healthcare provider or your psychiatrist. So, and there's not a lot of good, you know, I wouldn't say the I think what I was taught in neuroscience at least was that the data doesn't suggest that sleeping pills are like great. Um, you know what I mean? And more so, it's the habits of sleep that are good. So like setting that alarm to go to sleep, that kind of thing, or your food intake. The great thing about this is that a lot of you are going to be on my channel, The Bulk, right? That's going to significantly help with your ability to be able to recover because you're in an excess amount of food. Uh, and again, it's going to cause a lot of food comas for you, so it's going to force you to relax down. You know what I mean? And it's a great feeling, honestly. Uh, but for those of you who are more on a cut or trying to lose fat or all of that, I'll address that too. That your body is going to be in somewhat of a more fatigued state because you're giving it less than what it needs to be able to maintain its current body weight. And so hunger signaling is going to be a natural byproduct of that. You're naturally going to feel a lot more hungry, which means that your body is going to be more in a fight or flight response. So if you can, you might be able to fast and then have all your calories at once to get sort of like a carb crash so that you get a huge level of like sensitivity, you know what I mean, to like carbs. Um, Again, fasting is not directly going to help with the fat loss. Fasting just means you're reducing the window that you eat within so that you're satiated with less food, essentially. So, so yeah, bulking is going to significantly help with that. So, um, just wanted to let you know, just wanted to set the expectation straight. Weight, when in terms of fat loss or weight loss, it's going to be a little bit more um, difficult. But now that I've set that expectation, you would know. Okay, so you're not giving yourself more psychological distress than is necessary to be able to recover. Um, I talked about deload as well. You know, hitting those smaller muscle groups every other day or every 2 days, and then those bigger ones like every 2 days or every 3 days, just depends on like where you are in your journey. You know what I mean? You need to be able to measure that. You need to be able to feel that. Okay. Um, And don't gaslight yourself and be like, I'm not going hard enough. As long as you're like, you know, properly breathing through your sets, going through failure, doing a good job, you know what I mean? You'll be fine. You'll be fine. And if that, in the beginning weeks, in the first few weeks of lifting, you will feel that soreness. And so that's completely natural. That's to be expected. The more you lift, the less sore you'll probably feel overall. But at the beginning, you'll feel more sore, especially your legs. So let that be the expectation. And yeah, focus on the basics. Just to sleep, try out the mouth tape, see how it works. Get consistent within your meditation or prayers. You know what I mean? Meditate for 5 minutes. I have a guide on my channel on how to meditate, so just look that up, um, and you'll be able to find it. What else? Carb crash. If you really are going to play video games, if you really are going to watch anime, all those things. Cold plunge, do not do after a workout. Literally anti-recovery. Do not not get your full protein in. You need to get your full protein in because that's also like anti-recovery. And then stress management. You know what I mean? Manage your stress. Don't put yourself through unnecessary stress, which is like talking to a lot of these people that don't want to talk to you, or weird social situations that you're just not very fond of. Um, and then the stress that you feel like you have to go through, learn and find ways to mitigate. Of course, easier said than done, 100%. Um, but again, find ways to mitigate that through either those carb crashes, um, and or better sleeping and eating habits, because those are actually going to be a significant reason why you're feeling stressed. You know what I mean? It's not maybe your job itself, but if you can, um, use the other stuff that I talked about in this video to manage that stress, even if that job is a little bit stressful. You know what I mean? What else? And yeah, anything that isn't like anti-recovery, like I mentioned, which is like a solid like two or three things, do. And if you feel genuinely relaxed from them, then you're going to be fine. You're going to recover. And the way you measure that recovery is by your performance. Are you doing better in the gym? Of course, as you get more seasoned and become more of a seasoned veteran at this thing, you're going to make less progress, which is not synonymous with like performance, just to make sense. You know what I mean? If you're performing well at the gym, um, it could be performing at the same level, especially if you're a veteran, or just a slightly better, maybe a rep more, maybe five for newer people to lifting. Like within the first 1 or 2 years, you're gonna be like going up in weight like crazy. Okay, on most of your exercises. For the individuals that are like more seasoned, you're gonna be going up in less weight, maybe like 5 pounds, 2.5, 10 pounds, more of those kinds of things, and maybe even just reps. You know what I mean? And one last thing that I want to talk about is again deloading. Okay, so sometimes bodybuilders and a lot of people who like working out, you know what I mean, they'll take something called the deload week and use this rarely for when you feel as if you're doing everything you can. Your diet's on point, your sleep's on point. Um, for the most part, of course, we're not going to be all perfect. You know what I mean? Your training's on point, and you still feel fatigued during the day. Maybe you need something called a deload week, which means that you get very, very light physical activity within that week. Very light. And it is done with the intention. Here's the cue that you're going to use, okay, for what it means to do light activity. It means you're not pushing yourself to get better. And I know that sounds like very counterintuitive to a lot of you, but what you're doing is within that week time, when you're measuring by a week, yeah, you're not going to get better, okay? And you're going to be like, oh my God, that sucks. I'm not getting better for a week. You know what I mean? But in a longer time horizon, when you're measuring in a longer, much longer time horizon, like years, you're getting better because what you're doing is you're taking a deload week and in turn boosting your performance the next week you come back because you're going to be much stronger. And when you do that on a I don't want to say a consistent basis, but like um, every 2 3 months, you know what I mean, that kind of thing, on that kind of frequency. Some might do it more often, some might do it less often. um, Experiment with it, see what's working out for you. um, you're going to get a lot stronger, you're going to get a lot better, you're going to feel a lot better, you're not going to feel like you're overtraining or fatigued, and it's going to give you a good idea if you're like over fatiguing or overtraining and things of that nature. So very, very helpful. But besides that, guys, that was the full in-depth guide of recovery. And again, I have my school community who recommended this video for me, to be able to share with them, because they wanted to know. Like, I always ask them all the time, like, yo, what do y'all want me to make videos on so I can help y'all out the best I can? So if you have questions that are like really, really nuanced and specific to people who are like us, who like gaming, who like, you know, who are perhaps Muslim, who are perhaps into anime, stuff like that, join that community. You know what I mean? Because I don't want you to feel like you're alone on this journey, because I know I did for a long time, and I don't want other people to have to go through that. So that's why I'm creating this community. It's not that big yet, but we're getting bigger slowly and surely. And again, completely free. We hold weekly calls on there, usually on um, Saturdays, and stuff like that, on Texas, in terms of Texas time, Saturdays in the US. Um, so So yeah, that's pretty much all I got for you. Go ahead, join that community, check out the meditation guide if you need to. Use the free workout in the link in the bio. Go follow me on Instagram if you want to check out like the reels I make, just to stay motivated, stuff like that. It's the same on YouTube, but in case you're interested. But yeah, that's pretty much all I got for y'all. And yeah, take it easy. All right, peace.